Hello friends, this is Dory Horesco with Forever Quilting. As you may have heard, the All Missouri Shop Hop has officially begun. This shop hop will run from September to October of 2024, and it has 99 different quilt shops participating. Now the All Missouri Shop Hop features exclusive fabric designed especially for our 2024 event, and we have them here in the store. Along with this exclusive line of Shop Hop fabrics, patterns, kits, and other goodies, each location will also have a special gift for shop hoppers just for visiting their shop and showing proof of your passport. This year, the gift is a collectible quilt block pattern card. Now, I've seen these blocks and they are adorable. You will definitely want to collect each and every one of them. I've also made several of the blocks and they're not difficult. But there are a few tips that I would like to share with you about the blocks that you'll be receiving from our store. These pattern cards have all the cutting instructions listed, so you can cut your own kit. But if that's not your jam, we have made the kits in 2 different colorways. Now these kits are pre-cut and will make it so much easier and faster for you to piece your blocks together. Let me show you how. When you get your kit, I want you to separate the pieces by color and by shape, and then go ahead and arrange them in the order of the different pieced blocks. So we've got our little ones here, and we've got our square. Those are going to be going something like that. Then we've got these pieces here, some greens, some reds, and then the cream. Okay, so we're basically making 2 different blocks. We're going to start with this block here. You should have 4 reds, 4 greens to one side, 4 greens to the other side, and the white. Before you start piecing your blocks, I want you to set up your machine for a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now on my machine, that means that I'm going to use my 1/4 inch foot, and then I'm going to set my needle 1 position to the right. So I've got it right in the center of my foot right now, and I'm going to move my needle placement I'm pushing the button 1 time, I'm going to move it 1 space to the right. Now it's still going to fall inside of the hole on my foot, but it's going to give me just a little bit smaller than a 1/4 inch. So that's what we call a scant 1/4 inch. Okay, now I'm going to take 2 of these blocks, putting them right sides together, and because these blocks are pre-cut for you, everything is going to line up really nice. You're not going to have to worry about that little point at the end. And we're going to sew the seams together. We're going to take the next 2 and we're chain stitching this. So we're going to do the next 2 still right sides together. Before I keep stitching these, I'm going to show you how this is laid out. So we've got the 2 pieces together, and you can see here, I'm not cutting the threads between the 2 blocks or 2 triangles. Okay, we're going to leave it exactly like that. And that way we know that these are a pair, they go together. Okay, so let's do that again with the other blocks. Okay, so remember we're keeping these in sets. Okay, paired up. Now we're going to go over to the ironing board and iron them in the opposite directions. We want the seams going in the opposite directions. Okay, so I'm going to flip this one over and I'm going to iron this to where they're going toward the green block in this case. These are going in the opposite direction. So you can see we're going to nest them together. And I'm going to go ahead and place a pin there so that I keep those right where they need to be, and then line up the end here, and I'm ready to sew. So I'm going to do that with the other blocks now. Notice that I'm ironing the pieces flat. That's called setting the seam, and then I open up the seam and iron it. Line up the edge of the block and sew these seams. Now remember to take your time. This is not a race. You want to get nice, even seams. Now we're going to take our blocks and iron them. Now this time I want you to iron them to the light color. So we're going to leave the seam there and open it up to where it's going towards the light color. Now, if you're worried about these blocks coming out exactly the right size, this would be a good time to test that out by taking your ruler and putting the 45-degree going across the middle there and seeing if you came out to be a 3.5-inch block. If you didn't, then this would be the time to trim it up and make sure that it is 3.5 inches. Even if that means that you're just shaving off a little bit, keeping that nice and even. Hopefully if you had a correct scant 1/4 inch seam, then your blocks will be coming out exactly at 3.5. All right, now that we've got all those blocks done, we're going to move on to the next block. In this one, we've got little triangles and then our square and then a larger triangle. We're going to start by piecing the small triangles to the square. We're going to iron these. Iron them to one side. And now we're ready to do the other triangle. Again, going to take it and do right sides together, but this time instead of starting sewing it here, which is kind of feeling like it's backwards, we're going to actually flip it over, line it up, and then sew it with the triangle on the bottom. We're going to take these over to the iron again and iron them open. I shouldn't say open, that might confuse you. We are not having the seams open, but we're just folding the fabric back and ironing it. I do know some people like to iron seams open. I do on occasion when it's kind of appropriate, but for the most part, I do not iron my seams open. Okay, We've got all of those done. Now we should be able to lay this larger triangle on top and it be the exact same size, but if it's not, what I like to do is actually line up my corners, okay, and then look at that and see, turn it around here. If I line up my corners, you can see that this overlaps just a little bit. It may be my piece triangle is a little bit larger than it should be. So that means I'll probably need to trim down my blocks, but I prefer to trim down my blocks than to have to rip it out and piece it again because my pieced block is too small. So I'm going to go ahead and line it up against the edge here, but I'm also making sure that my points are lined up, even if they're not, even if I see a little bit of that piece block underneath. I want my points to be coming out there together. Okay. All right, that seems centered and lined up. Now I am going to turn it to where my piece block is on top so that I can pay attention to those seams here, make sure everything stays nice and flat. My goal also is to pass right through where those threads cross, right on that point. That way I have a nice point there. All right, let's do the next one. Line those corners up. Line this front edge up, make sure everything is centered. This time we're going to place the pieced triangle on the bottom and the solid triangle on top. Then iron to the side of the solid triangle. So just flip that solid triangle back over and iron it flat. Okay, now we've got our second piece block done, but like we noticed before, it's probably not square. So let's go ahead and try to square that up. Now you can do it at either angle. You can go this way and trim this side and this side by placing that 45-degree on that large triangle. Remember, we want to make sure it comes out at 3.5. Or you can turn the triangle to where the 45-degree is going right through that square and right through that intersection in the large triangle. And on my ruler, I've got these little lines here that are at 1 3/4. And so I can line those up on my square. And I can see I have just a little bit of fabric over here that I want to trim. So I'm just going to go through and trim each of these up to make sure that they come out exactly 3.5 inches. Okay, I didn't take that much off of them, just a little bit of a shaving off the edges. And that way I can make sure that they are the perfect size. Now you don't have to do that. Most likely your blocks will come out perfectly square and you won't have to do that. Or maybe you don't care to do that, and that is totally fine. Okay, so now we are going to arrange our blocks. And in the right order. But I want you to play around with these blocks at this stage and just see how many different configurations you can come up with. You can turn the blocks this way and come up with a different look. You can turn these blocks around and have a different looking block. You can even, let's see, switch these back. Gives you a little bit different look. You can also switch these blocks. Let's see, just keep switching each of those. Come up with something a little bit different. Maybe you want the larger triangles to almost create like a star in the middle. There's just so many different ways that we could rearrange this block and come up with something totally different. But we need to get it sewn together the right way to make the block that the pattern shows. So I'm going to go ahead and switch these back around. Make sure we get everything in its right place. Okay, there we go. Our big triangles are on the outside. Our cream ones are on the middle. Now we're going to sew these together in rows. So we're going to place these two on top of each other. Hopefully you've ironed your seams in the right direction so that everything nests really well. Now, if you feel more comfortable, feel free to use some pins. I just tend to line everything up and feed it right in without having to pin everything. Now, I'm not going to cut these apart. We've got strings going in between here, and I'm not going to cut them. I'm simply going to open this up and place the next block on top of it. This way everything stays in the right order and I don't get anything twisted around. Now we're going to go over to the ironing board. Setting our seams on these, we're going to iron them out. And on the center one, we want to iron it in towards the center block. Now at this point, I do suggest using pins. We'll use the pins where these two seams nest together. Do it again to the other side, put our pins in, and then line up the end and start sewing again, nesting those triangles even. You can get your ironing set where everything lies, or everything nests, then all your seams will, or your whole block will actually lie flatter. Okay, one more good press and iron those open. Be a good time to confirm that your block looks like it should, that you didn't get any of those little pieces twisted and in the wrong place. And there we have it, our finished block.